Starfield, Mortal Kombat 1, Payday 3, Lords of the Fallen, and plenty more are just around the corner. How would you like to get them for 17% off with no strings attached? That's exactly what you can do thanks to this video's sponsor, Green Man Gaming, so click the link below to start saving or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Gamers, can you believe that we are just a few short days away from the release of one of the biggest games of the year, Trine 5? But also Starfield, that's pretty big too, I guess. That's right, the video games industry is taking a collective breath for the next few weeks, clearing the release schedule to make room for Todd's next opus. Not since Cyberpunk have we seen the entire industry give a single game such a wide berth, and all across the globe, governments have declared a nationwide shortage of Doritos and Mountain Dew as we all stock up for the long sessions ahead. There is one guy though who got his copy a little earlier than the rest of us, and a little more illegally than the rest of us, and that segues us neatly into our top story. Here comes the news. I don't know about you guys, but if I was to ever commit a crime, I wouldn't record proof of it and then post it to social media. But I'm no criminal mastermind, not like 29-year-old Darren Harris of Tennessee. To tell the whole story though, we need to go back a week or so when someone began leaking huge amounts of Starfield footage online. The first 45 minutes of the game was leaked, only it was recorded on a cell phone, which is hardly the most flattering way to reveal a game to the world. The leaker was Darren Harris, who after spending time with the game, uploaded the world's first ever Starfield review. It's pretty good, I think. Take a listen.
Todd, no offense, man. That's a good game.
That is a quote so good, I desperately hope Bethesda splices it into whatever accolades trailer we know they're already putting together. The story doesn't end there, mind you. People actually question whether or not Harris actually had access to Starfield, or if he was just talking out his ass. So Harris streamed footage of him with a whole lot of copies of the game. He also advertised that he was selling them to the highest bidder, and yeah, he was, as more than one person confirmed that they had received the game from him. How did this guy have a whole bunch of copies of Starfield weeks before release? The old 5-finger discount, that's how. Harris works or worked at a logistics distribution center, and he's accused of stealing 67 copies of the game. I am so disappointed that those numbers were not reversed. It would have been just poetry. Anyway, police got wind of all this. No one is exactly sure how. Perhaps it was the fact that he was live streaming proof of his crimes. I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm not a criminal mastermind. When the police did come for him, they executed a search warrant on his house. They found a copy of Starfield in a FedEx package, ready to be sent to one unlucky person who could be playing Starfield right now, were it not for those bothersome Shelby County police. They also found 3 handguns, one of which is allegedly stolen. Honestly though, given how seriously publishers take leaks, I reckon he's probably in more trouble for his Starfield post than he is the stolen iron. Harris has been charged and released on bail. He will soon appear before court. I hope he can figure out a way to delete videos from the internet between now and then. Otherwise, I suspect his goose is thoroughly cooked. Starfield is looking pretty great, and many are hopeful that it will be a Game of the Year contender. It does face very, very stiff competition though, in the form of Baldur's Gate 3, which I'm still currently playing, and I'm about to finish Act 2, 85 hours in. To say I'm taking it slow would be an understatement, but to be honest, it's incredible and I'm just savoring every hour as I go. Anyway, I digress. The point of bringing up Baldur's Gate 3 was to say that Xbox fans, you guys are getting it earlier than you might have thought. Recall that the game is headed to PlayStation on September 6th, the same day as Starfield. It's not headed to the Xbox though, because Larian couldn't get split-screen co-op working on the Xbox Series S. They could do it on the X, but the S simply wasn't powerful enough. As a result, they were not permitted by Microsoft to release the game on Xbox because both Series S and X need to have full feature parity. They can have different graphical options, but they are not allowed to have different features like co-op or multiplayer or additional levels, etc. Larian has said that Xbox owners wouldn't get Baldur's Gate 3 until sometime in 2024, which is a real shame because Baldur's Gate 3 is a goddamn masterpiece, and it sucks that anyone wouldn't be able to experience owing to their console choice. Except for Switch fans, but that's different. They're about to get a new Mario game, so you know they're going to be happy. Fast forward to Gamescom last week, where the Larian studio boss met with Xbox boss Phil Spencer, and together they reached a landmark accord. Baldur's Gate 3 will be the very first game to release on the Xbox Series ecosystem without full feature parity between S and X. The split-screen co-op feature will not be on Series S, but it will be on the X. It is unclear if Larian will continue to work toward adding that feature later on, but if I had to guess, I'd say they probably will. Larian is a great studio who treat their customers right. I'm sure if they can eventually bring this feature to Series S owners, they will. But this agreement does mark a new era for the Xbox Series consoles, whether Phil Spencer likes it or not. Now, any developer can waltz up to Microsoft and be like, hey, you did it for Larian, how about us? and Microsoft is going to have to come up with an answer for that. Personally, I think it's kind of okay for this requirement to be relaxed, especially as we get into the latter half of this console generation. The Series S is a fantastic device, but the low-spec option shouldn't stop additional features from shipping to the higher-spec machine. We wondered aloud if the Series S might hold game development back. Clearly it's doing so at least a little bit, so if Microsoft want to allow the Series X to be the world's most powerful console, as they've always promised, then they need to make sure the S isn't holding it back. Larian Studios are the modern day custodians of the CRPG, but back in the day that charge belonged to another studio, BioWare, who with Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Neverwinter Nights and Dragon Age Origins delivered us a veritable golden age of CRPGs. Today, things are very different for BioWare for reasons I'm sure I don't need to recount here, but unfortunately, things got even worse for the studio when this week it was announced that approximately 50 roles would be cut. The roles are across a variety of disciplines, including their writing team. 2 veteran writers were let go, Lucas Christiansen, who is credited with being the lead writer for Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, as well as Mary Kirby, who was the writer for the first 3 Dragon Age games. BioWare gave some very cold corporate explanation for the job cuts, agility, yada yada. It's important to note that Andrew Wilson is paid approximately $20 million a year plus his bonus. If all 50 of these people earned $100,000 a year, they would collectively represent 1/4 of his salary. Always a good calculation to keep in mind when reading companies justifying layoffs. What does this mean for BioWare? No one really knows, but it can't be anything good. They are still hard at work on Dragon Age Dreadwolf, and there's another Mass Effect game planned after that. You'd think that veteran talent like that would be an important part of the future, but yeah, you just don't know why these companies do what they do. Hopefully these 50 people all land on their feet. Changing gears now, I want to do another one of those hands-on impressions blocks we did a little while ago for Hot Wheels Unleashed 2. This time it's for Homeworld 3. I don't talk about this much, but I absolutely loved Homeworld back in the day. I don't know how it ever came to be installed on my computer, but along with Red Alert, it was probably the RTS that I dumped the most hours into. Its cold and impersonal rendition of interstellar conflict being so easy just to lose hours at a time. Homeworld 3 is being developed by Blackbird Interactive and published by Gearbox. They invited me to go hands-on with the game using my own PC setup. This is actually the second time I've been able to go hands-on with it. The first time was last year when I tested a bunch of single-player missions. This time around, I was testing the new Wargames mode, which is a roguelike-inspired PvE mode that basically aims to give you the thrills of a PvP-style experience in a much less stressful setting. You can play with a few friends co-op, you load into random maps with randomly generated objectives, and as you collect upgrades, they stay with you leading into subsequent maps, allowing you to finesse a unique fleet composition every time. That's where the roguelike elements come in, since the game mode is specifically intended to remix the experience every time you boot it up, allowing you to just space out in space. More broadly, I think this is looking great. They've really nailed the aesthetics, the scale, the soundscape, that dispassionate and aloof radio chatter that the series is known for. The studio's had a lot of practice with this IP already, and it looks like they're onto a pretty good thing based on my time with the game thus far. It's hitting in February of next year, so as long as February isn't as insanely stacked as the last 2 Februarys were, I'll be sure to review this one as soon as it drops. One of the craziest stories to drop this week was the official reveal of the PlayStation Portal. Crazy in a sort of, what the fuck is Sony thinking kind of way. This thing was teased earlier during a PlayStation showcase, Jim Ryan saying that Sony was working on a remote play handheld to work in concert with your PS5. Back then, we had all held out hope that maybe this thing would do some other stuff, because we can already do remote play on our phones, so we don't really need a dedicated device for that. Sadly, those hopes were dashed this week when Sony revealed the details behind their very shiny but very disappointing new device. Firstly, it's called the PlayStation Portal, or the PSP, but don't call it that because the PSP was good and this certainly is not. It's an 8-inch LCD screen, which is already kind of disappointing as the OLED option would have been better. It's suspended by a DualSense controller cut in half and then glued to the sides, and if the DualSense battery is anything to go by, we should expect a solid 90 minutes of playtime out of this thing. Oh, I am joking, of course, but the DualSense battery is very bad. The Portal is a remote play device only, and I mean only. It does not have any internal processing like the Steam Deck or the Switch. It must be connected to the same wireless network as your PS5, and your PS5 must be turned on and available for use since it's the PS5 doing all of the work. We had hoped that this device would be used to access Sony's cloud streaming platform, but no. Sounds pretty shitty, right? Well, I've saved the worst for last. This thing doesn't have Bluetooth, so if you want to listen to it with headphones, you have to plug in a wired set of headphones. If that is unappealing, it is possible to use wireless earbuds or a wireless headset, but only if it's Sony's official Pulse products using their proprietary wireless protocol. Sony has essentially paywalled wireless audio. That is like a first, I think? Can you imagine if Apple or Samsung did this with their next generation of phones? Disclaimer, Apple and Samsung, please do not do this with your next generation of phones. And what, you ask, is the price for this modern marvel of limited use case technology? $199 US for a remote play only device that basically has no wireless audio unless you pay extra for it and has no Bluetooth. The Switch has Bluetooth, and the Switch was invented like 40 years ago or something, I don't know. This is a truly, truly baffling device. Honestly, one of the worst hardware plays I've seen from any major player in a long time. This could have been a really interesting product that gets Sony ready for the cloud-enabled future, one that could encourage a new way to play on the go, perhaps inspire a new generation of handheld-focused development. This thing, though, is completely dead on arrival, and I suspect these things will have more utility as collector's items than they will as usable devices. A quick lightning round to finish off. Apparently, Uncle Phil is very happy with Tango Works, who earlier this year released Hi-Fi Rush. Speaking on his Game Mess Mornings podcast, Jeff Grubb says that Microsoft is very happy with that studio. They're reinvesting in it, and the studio has a bright future. Not for nothing, but Hi-Fi Rush has apparently reached more than 3 million players. Fantastic result for a truly top-tier game. Like a Dragon Gaiden arrives in November, and surprise, it'll feature a demo for Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, the next mainline installment in the iconic franchise. Not much else to say about that one, except that's pretty cool. Sony is in the process of finalizing the acquisition of Audeze, a manufacturer of premium gaming headsets. When I first read this headline, I thought that Audeze was pronounced Audeze, and I had this joke ready like, Sony should have acquired these nuts? But then I learned how it was actually pronounced, and so now the story's kind of boring. Moving right along. Apparently, Indiana Howard is apparently halfway through the production of the Indiana Jones game he's long dreamed of making. GQ magazine said as much, but their language was a little unclear. It's unlikely that the Indiana Jones game is halfway through development. It's more likely they were just listing the things that Todd had on his plate right now, which is a lot between Starfield, The Elder Scrolls 6, the Fallout TV show, and the Indiana Jones game. Apparently, there's a Jak and Daxter movie in the works over at Sony. The two leads being considered? Tom Holland as Jak, and I cannot believe I'm about to say this, Chris Pratt as Daxter. Now listen, Hollywood, you are aware that there are other actors than Chris Pratt, right? There are other people working in this industry other than this one man. Do Hollywood executives think that gamers all love Chris Pratt and we want him in everything? No, that space is already occupied by Keanu Reeves and to a similar extent, Henry Cavill. In fact, let's just get them to play Jak and Daxter. Keanu as Jak.
I'm thinking I'm back.
And Henry Cavill as Daxter.
Fuck.
So what got announced or delayed this week? Well, one of the biggest announcements of the week came out of nowhere, and I'm not sure how many people might care about it at this point, but I certainly do. Warhammer 40k Darktide arrives on Xbox Series consoles and Game Pass on October 4th. This is almost a year after it was initially meant to arrive on Xbox, but the shonky state of the PC release was proof positive that the Xbox delay was a good call. Is this game good yet? Question mark? Look, I'm gonna tell you right now, you should boot this up, you should play it, you should experience its top tier gunplay and unrivaled 40k immersion, and then you should probably uninstall it and wait for some patches to roll through. The game is steadily being updated with an overhaul to the perk system arriving on October 4th as well, but it's still got a long way to go before it becomes the game that everyone hoped it might be. The bones are absolutely there and the meat is coming, but it's not here yet, so just be sure to set your expectations accordingly, Xbots. Gamescom happened last week, but we covered off all those announcements in the last episode. Link below the like button. P.S. Please hit the like button. Thank you. Love you. But when Gamescom was over, it was on to TennoCon. It returned to the in-person format for the first time in a few years, and it was back stronger than ever thanks to a slew of big announcements and reveals. Obviously, there's new content headed to Warframe, including skins, a new Warframe, a new quest arc, etc. Cross-save, one of the game's most requested features, is confirmed to be launching sometime this year, which is great. Warframe is coming to mobile. Right now, it's only confirmed for iOS, and you can pre-register it in select territories to get some free stuff for your account. It's meant to be just a straight port of the main game, but playable on your mobile. So yeah, pretty impressive if Digital Extremes can pull it off. We'll find out when it launches sometime next year. The final two announcements were the big ones. The first was a gameplay showcase for Soulframe, the first new game from Digital Extremes since Warframe released all those years ago. It is a very big deal, and it's looking pretty damn good. Take a look. Visually, this looks stunning, the setting and the music is incredible, and the gameplay looks like an interesting mix of Warframe's familiar third-person action combat mixed with a slower and more deliberate pacing a la Souls-like. I think this looks very promising, and yeah, I can't wait to get my hands on it at some point in the future. The final reveal was for whatever this is. This is Warframe 1999, and it's a content update coming to Warframe at some point in the future, at least we think it is, because Digital Extremes were pretty tight-lipped about it. It shows a dude wearing Excalibur-style armor shooting an AK-47 in a subway station. I don't know who the hell at DE came up with this, but whoever it was, give him a raise. This looks super cool, and I will definitely be logging in to check this out when it releases, whenever that might be. Alright, so that was TennoCon, but what else got announced this week? Well, Nightdive Studios are on a roll right now. Fresh off their success with the System Shock remake, they've announced 2 new projects and a desire to do a third. The first one locked in is Turok 3 Shadows of Oblivion. This completes the trilogy for them since they've already remastered the first 2. Only this third one will look even better thanks to a whole new approach to texture rebuilding, a new lighting engine, and more. This one is targeting a November 14th release. The second announcement was particularly hype. Nightdive are remaking Star Wars Dark Forces. Hell yes, man, this team sure knows how to pick them. The classic LucasArts shooter was basically the only Star Wars shooter for the longest time, and was unsurprisingly excellent as it came along during the golden age of LucasArts Star Wars games like X-Wing and TIE Fighter. There's no release date for this one yet, so don't expect it soon, but it's great to know that Nightdive have turned their attention to this one. Finally, the studio revealed what they'd like to work on after Dark Forces, and it's unreal. Literally, it's unreal. The video game from 1999 developed by Epic Mega Games and Digital Extremes. This is OG Unreal, mind you, not Tournament. This is the single-player shooter similar to Doom or Quake, but with a much more alien sci-fi aesthetic. It was celebrated as a technical marvel back in the day, and it will surely be again if Nightdive are able to get their hands on it. They're reaching out to Tim Sweeney to see if he'd be interested. I'm sure he would be if it's an Epic exclusive, so yeah, gotta take the good with the bad, I guess. The factory must grow. To the stars, that is. That's right, Factorio is getting an expansion called Space Age. It's Factorio in space, with weird alien-looking shit. There was already a mod that did something like that called Space Exploration, and the person who worked on that mod appears to be central to the development of this expansion. It's dropping about a year from now, and the developer has promised weekly updates, so stay tuned. Jusant is that climbing game from Dontnod revealed a little while ago. It's looking lovely, the previews have all been very positive, and now it's got a release date October 31st for all platforms bar the Switch, and it will be day 1 on Game Pass. Hey, this one's a little unexpected. Dune Spice Wars is hitting 1.0 in September. It's been in early access since last year, where it's received excellent reviews, even with big chunks of the game missing. It's a 4X RTS hybrid that's very true to the source material. This universe is getting a whole new lease on life thanks to the movies, the upcoming survival game from Funcom, and now this. There's no specific date for this one yet, but it is September, which is like tomorrow, so I'll let you know when a firm date is locked in. Some delay announcements now. Hyperlight Breaker has been pushed into 2024. Its early access was originally planned for 2023, but the team says they need more time. Fair enough. Another delay announcement for a very different reason. Phasmophobia was meant to arrive on consoles very soon, but it's going to be a little whiles yet, owing to a fire at the office. Doesn't appear that anyone was hurt, but it has pushed back development time, and the game is now targeting a console release closer to the scary season, Halloween in October of this year. 2 unofficial delays to finish. Stalker was never officially targeting a 2023 release, but there was a date posted on a distributor website that got tongues a-wagging. Developer GSC Games put the kibosh on all that, updating their official fact sheet to confirm a planned Q1 2024 release. So yep, there it is. And finally, Dragon Age Dreadwolf. Again from Jeff Grubb, he says that Dreadwolf was originally targeting a September 2023 release, but got pushed back to 2024, and is now planned for Northern Summer next year, so sometime between June and August. I wonder how much rework is going on after the release of Baldur's Gate 3. You gotta guess at least a little bit. Pretty tough act to follow, and no doubt more than a few comparisons will be drawn. Personally, I'm pulling for BioWare. They've had a very rocky couple of years, and it'd be great to see them get back into fighting form with Dreadwolf. So what came out last week? Well, Immortals of Aveum did. I think it's kind of hard to say if you look at the Steam numbers. We actually did an episode of the Friends Per Second podcast last week, and we titled that episode, Is There Room for a 7 out of 10 game in 2023? The answer is apparently no, because Immortals of Aveum, which is a perfectly fine game, sitting at 73 on OpenCritic, 69% user score on Steam, nice, peaked at just 751 concurrent players on Steam. And that number has been dropping very sharply since then. Less than a week from release, this game is averaging 200 to 300 concurrent players. That is pretty brutal, and easily the biggest flop that the EA Originals label has produced, since EA have to this point had a pretty good nose for this stuff. As much as our heart might ironically break for old Andy Wilson, it breaks for real when you consider Ascendant Studios. This is their debut title, clearly a lot of love and passion has gone into it, and to see it fizzle out like this is, yeah, that's gotta hurt. But yeah, look, as I said in my review, this is fine. I do recommend it for its low-stakes, cathartic fun, and its surprisingly earnest world-building, but it would hardly be an essential purchase in a regular year. But in 2023, sandwiched between Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield, it's like, man, who has time or money for that? Not many people, it seems. This is certainly the last we've heard of Aveum. Hopefully it's not the last we've heard from Ascendant Studios, as I think they definitely deserve another crack in the future. From a massive magical flop to a massive mech win, Armored Core 6 is a hit, a really, really big one. The series that was at one time super niche and not particularly well regarded by critics has found its moment in Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. It debuted on Steam at 150,000 concurrent players, making it the 5th largest PC launch of the year. It's also done super well for itself with the critics, sitting at a mighty 85 on OpenCritic and a similar 83% very positive on Steam. IGN's FromSoft guy Mitch Saltzman scored an 8 and said, quote, Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon's stellar customization options feed into its excellent mecha combat, when the result is challenging combat puzzles that kept my attention all the way through its 15-hour campaign and beyond. It's let down by a dull story, but lands direct hits where it counts, end quote. Do note that 15 hours is for a single playthrough, and New Game Plus definitely changes things up in notable ways to encourage multiple completions. Like I said, I do plan to come back to this one in the future, but now though it sits very high atop my pile of shame. Blasphemous 2 arrived last week for all platforms. If you have played the first, you would be unsurprised to learn that the sequel is excellent. A very positive 92% on Steam and a mighty 84 on OpenCritic. GameSpot really liked it, scoring it a 9 and saying, quote, with robust combat, improved traversal, and a return to the series' surreal art style and fascinating world building, Blasphemous 2 is a triumphant sequel, end quote. Shack News were in about the same place, scoring it an 8 and saying, quote, the combat and platforming aren't groundbreaking, relying a lot on backtracking and collectibles, but the difficulty level generally strikes a fine balance between being challenging and fair. Along with a wonderful art style and spirited music, the game makes blaspheming a reason worth fighting for, end quote. I'm not sure the last bit makes sense, but we all know what he means, so let's just go with it. And finally, amazing to see this result, Sea of Stars reviews have dropped, and it's sitting at a mighty 90 on OpenCritic, making it the equal 9th highest rated game of the year. Game Informer had a good write-up that really sold the appeal, scoring it a 9 and saying, quote, Sea of Stars is a stellar throwback that appeals to fans like me who love 16-bit RPGs, but it also functions as an excellent entry point. Annoyances that hindered early games that inspired Sea of Stars are nowhere to be seen. Simple actions like moving around the world feel great, the story picks up quickly, and farming experience is effectively unnecessary. It all leads to a smooth, consistently thrilling adventure with fun combat, all in a gorgeous and inviting world, end quote. My friend Gerard, aka The Completionist, is covering the game on his channel, and he was all about this, saying, quote, now the embargo for Sea of Stars is out, Sea of Stars is my current game of the year. I loved every single moment of the game, it's truly a masterpiece, best completion experience in a game ever, but my words are super biased, you'll see why when you play the game, end quote. So there you have it, that was a pretty big week of releases, right? Is this coming week as big? Thankfully, definitely not. So, what is coming out this week? Somerville arrives on PlayStation on the 31st after having earlier been available on Xbox and PC. I played a little bit of this one, but sadly found it quite clunky and confusing, putting a premium on visual presentation over playability, so I had to kind of put it down. Not sure if it improves after those opening hours, but the reviews indicate that it does not. Trine 5: A Clockwork Conspiracy arrives on all platforms on the 31st as well. It's more Trine. They keep making them, so people must keep buying them. They're always really pretty, really clever puzzle games offering pleasant couch co-op shenanigans. They're a pretty known quantity at this point, so if you want another one, it's coming. A lesser known quantity is Chants of Sennaar, which launches on PC and the Switch on the 5th. This is a narrative-led puzzle game inspired by the myth of Babel, which is a story about a time when humanity was united and productive, and God thought it would be kind of funny to mess with that, so he jumbled up all of their languages so they could no longer work together, and thus humanity scattered to the far corners of the earth, beginning the age of tribalism and conflict. You think I'm making this stuff up, by the way? Go look at Genesis. It is full of this sort of stuff. Anyway, Chants of Sennaar has a lovely art style, and I hope it's great. You know what else I hope is great? the biggest release of the week. Nay, the biggest release of the year. No, the biggest release for this entire console generation, at least if you were on Team Green. Starfield arrives on September 1st in early access, exclusive to Xbox and PC. If you give Todd some extra money, he will let you play his game early, while everyone else will have to wait until September 6th. But good news, those people get to play it on Game Pass, so that's a pretty good cost saving. Starfield is Bethesda Game Studios' first release since Fallout 76 delighted audiences, the media, and regulatory bodies all those years ago. There's 16 times the hype for this one though, as this is the studio's first new IP since they acquired the rights to Fallout back in 2008. The initial gameplay reveal elicited a thunderous yawn, leading Bethesda and Microsoft to delay the game considerably. When it re-emerged during the June showcase this year, the title looked significantly improved, with some excellent art design, improved graphical fidelity, and a compelling suite of immersive space sim elements like shipbuilding, space combat, planetary exploration, and more. I personally was super impressed by it, and said back then on Twitter that if all this comes together in the final product, that this is absolutely going to be the game that everyone was hoping for and that Xbox needs. Because yeah, Xbox needs this to go well. After the catastrophic flop of Redfall, another Bethesda published title, Microsoft are keen to reset the narrative surrounding Xbox and their exclusive strategy. Forza is dropping in October, but you know, it's Forza. We know it's probably going to be fantastic, but it's not going to shift the needle one way or the other. Microsoft needs Starfield to be that Game of the Year contending, genre-defining experience that silences the console warriors and sets up for the second phase of the Xbox Series lifecycle. Will Todd be able to pull it off? Reviews drop Thursday or Friday morning, depending on where you are. We will all find out together then. Hey, put this on your radar. Alright, so here's the pitch for Kibu. You are a solitary monk living in the mountains and you need to build a temple by yourself. Is that not already the perfect setup? But wait, there's more. You get to brew delicious tea, you can train martial arts in the sunset, you fish, you explore a beautiful, idyllic paradise and commune with ancient spirits while doing it. Come on man, this feels like cheating. There's no way a cozy game fan is going to be able to turn any of this down. Its expert finishing is no coincidence, mind you. This one comes from Studio Inky Fox, who had earlier put out the excellent Omno, a single-player adventure title with a similar art style but set in a frozen tundra. That had none of the crafting and management stuff that Kibu has though. This is all new and it all looks fantastic. This one has only recently been revealed and doesn't have a release window yet, so if you'd like to stay on top of it, then be sure to wishlist it. That helps out indie developers in a big way and helps you keep track of titles that have at some point or another caught your eye. If you'd like to do that, I've profiled it over on my Steam Curator page, which also has links to all of the other Put This On Your Radar stuff I've recently covered. I'll leave a link to all of that below the like button. Sort of free stuff time now, and this is the very last week of the month, so be sure to grab your PS Plus titles, your Prime Gaming goodies, and the very last Games with Gold ever, since that service will be replaced next month by the new Game Pass Core thing, which is basically just Xbox Live with a static library of 25 games that get some new additions from time to time. For now though, be sure to grab Homeworld Deserts of Carrick from the Epic Games Store. That's a prequel to the classic Homeworld RTS series and a perfect warm-up for Homeworld 3 arriving early next year. Later this week, that'll disappear though, replaced by Cave Story Plus, a 16-bit inspired platformer released back in 2011. Not much else to say about that one. Now, at the time of recording, we did not have official confirmation of the September PS Plus lineup, but there has been an unconfirmed leak, so do take it with a grain of salt. But if it's accurate, Sony ponies, you have a big month ahead of you. Get ready for Saints Row. No. This is a good deal. See, the game just released on Steam a few days ago, and it's already been marked down 67%. And since PlayStation fans are getting it for a 100% markdown, then yeah, you guys are doing all right? If that leak is accurate, I'm sure Saints Row will be more than enough to balance out whatever Xbox has got cooking on Game Pass this month, right? So let's go check in on that, and yep, it's Starfield. Sorry PlayStation fans, I think you're gonna have to take the L on that one. Our feel-good story for the week takes us back to a story we covered last week, actually. The legendary Charles Martinet announced that he was stepping back as the voice of Mario. While we all do a mean Mario impression when the mood takes us, Martinet's is the template on which all of our efforts are based. He is, of course, utterly irreplaceable, but Mario still needs a voice, and one man is stepping up to the plate. He's a little different from what we're used to, but it could be a welcome change for the character, bringing more emotional depth and resonance. Mario has never won an Oscar, for example, but with this man voicing him, perhaps he may. The man is Ben Starr, the voice of Clive Rosfield from Final Fantasy XVI, and this is his audition.
It's a Mia. I'm Mario. You looking for Mario? Because it's a Mia. Look who it is. Me. Mario. What the fuck are you looking at? It's a Mia, a Mario. Who am I? I'm a Mia, a Mario. A Mia is a Mia, and I am a Mario.
I promise I'm not intending for the Feelgood block to always be a Ben Starr love-in, but when the man puts out stuff this good, what am I supposed to do? I'm only human. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the show for the week. I hope you had yourself a good time. If you did, be sure to hit the like button, as that's always super helpful in getting the video pumping out over that all-powerful YouTube algorithm. A comment also helps. Clicking the subscribe button and dinging the notification bell definitely help. We're just about to get into the 2 biggest months of the year in terms of game releases and content, so I hope you'll join me for it. Thanks again for stopping by, and if you want to get a very tidy discount on some of those big ticket releases, be sure to stick around for the sponsor at the end. You're going to like this one. See ya. That is the sound of your wallet straining under the weight of all the AAA bangers just around the corner. But I have got something that can help. This video sponsor, Green Man Gaming, who right now are offering up to 17% off some of the biggest new releases of the year. Like Starfield, for example. That is coming out in early access on September 1st, and you can get that for 17% off. Mortal Kombat 1, 17% off. Payday 3, Lies of P, City Skylines 2, and so much more. Hell, even the recently announced Destiny 2 Final Shape expansion is on there, 17% off. You may be wondering, what's the catch? Well, there is no catch. Green Man Gaming are one of the most established and respected PC gaming retailers because they've always offered excellent prices on PC titles, and they are not a grey market key reseller. Every single key they sell has been sourced directly from the publisher themselves. There are no scammy stolen keys that end up getting cancelled weeks or months after you bought them. It's 100% legit. All the money goes directly to the publisher, and all the savings go directly to you. Green Man Gaming has always been one of the best places to pick up new release PC games because they're just cheaper almost every time. It's the same Steam key you'd buy from Valve. You plug it straight into Steam and it appears in your Steam library. It's just like 10 or 15 or 17% cheaper when you buy from Green Man Gaming. That is not all though. Green Man Gaming have a catalog of over 9,000 games, and they regularly host flash sales or spot discounts, meaning it's always a good idea to check back regularly to scoop up a nice deal. The discounts don't stop there either. Every time you spend at Green Man Gaming, you earn XP points, which as you collect, grant you access to their exclusive loyalty program. Here you'll find even lower prices, so if you've spent with Green Man Gaming in the past, you could probably take advantage of these even bigger savings right now. Over 6 million gamers have purchased from Green Man Gaming over the years. That's a lot of happy customers who've all saved plenty of dosh thanks to Green Man Gaming savings. 2023 is a banger year for video games, and the second half is looking just as strong as the first. So if you want to grab new releases like Starfield, Mortal Kombat 1, Lords of the Fallen, or Payday 3 while getting up to 17% off, then click the link below and use offer code SKILLUP17 at checkout. That's offer code SKILLUP17 at checkout for a 17% discount. Some exclusions, terms and conditions apply. Thanks Green Man Gaming for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.